Hello and welcome back to another Common Lisp video. In this one we're going to be looking at how to read files, text files, just for now. There's a fair bit to it. There is a lot of different read functions that are available, and there's a lot of different keywords that you can pass to the various functions, and there's ways to handle errors. And that's kind of what we're going to get into today. It's going to be the start of a new, chapter of videos that are dealing with I/O and file I/O. And something to be aware of is Common Lisp uses the concept of streams. Java and other languages treat files as stream objects. Python treats, I suppose it is a bit like a stream. The historical real world analogy is programs and data were once stored on magnetic tape, and when I was starting work experience at college, stuff was backed up onto magnetic tape. It wasn't all that unusual. So because this influenced the development of computers, and the APIs were built around the understanding that you're reading to tape, and you're seeking the words that many languages use, like seek and read, are very much like the concepts of writing to magnetic tape. So that's a historical artifact that we just have to deal with. But never mind. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a piece of code that reads itself, and that's going to be simply the file the computer program is in is going to read the file that the computer program is in. That was highly redundant. You'll see what I mean. So if we want to open a file in Common Lisp, we use the open function, and as we've seen before, we need to use let. So we're going to say in open, and we're going to open this file, which is quick Lisp, local projects, fio, source, main. Yeah, that's the one. Then we are going to print out. I'm going to use format. We're just going to read the first line. There's something else we need to do, and if you've programmed in most other languages before, you'll be aware that we have a resource pointer here, and we need to close it. If you've not seen this before, when you open an object, you need to close it again. Python has the with keyword, so you might see with something, open something as F. That is a context manager. It will close it for you. I believe JavaScript manages it for you. Not sure 100%. It's been a long time since I used Node. And Java, I am aware. We've got a random space there. That's going to screw us over. There we go. Java has stream objects that you open and close. So it's a fairly common idiom. So you open a resource, you must make sure you close it again. It's the same with database connections, anything like that. Anything that is a resource, make sure you're closing it. So we've got this. We're going to evaluate it now. I'm going to make that a wee bit bigger. Come on. There we go. So let's evaluate this. We can see that we've now got def package fio, which is exactly the first line printed out here from this file. And we can do this again. And we're going to get the first two lines. So I'm going to put a little break there so you can see that it's following on. There we go. We've got the first two lines of that. This isn't ideal because we'd have to know how long the file was to be able to print out the lines. So this isn't a scalable solution. What we would do is we're going to have to use the loop macro. Now, confession time, the loop macro is pretty hairy. I can't say I fully understand it all. I have the Land of Lisp book, and they have a big 2-page spread showing all the different combinations and ways in which the loop macro could be used. So it's not simple. So I have prepared a little bit of code that I've researched and I've got my head around it. And we're gonna delve into some very early uses of the loop macro. So let's get rid of these 2 lines. Loop macros begin with the word loop. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna loop over something. So loop for, we're gonna say line equals readline in, and we're gonna say while line format t not sure, but really hoping this will work. Yeah, of course it doesn't. Bear with me. I knew that this would be difficult. What am I doing wrong? So loop for while equals readline in. That should work. While line, is it do? While line do? I think it might be that. That might be what I'm missing. Nope, it is not. Although I do need to do. So I do need to do that. Oh, I know what it is. So the readline function takes a number of parameters, and I've forgotten about it. So what we need to do is we need to pass nil here. And this is not a default value. Let's hover over it and we'll have a look. So these are optional arguments, and there's 2 here. There's end of file error p, which is by default set to true, and we're going to set it to nil here. So when we reach the end of the file, we were getting an error, and that is probably what was going on. So if we pass in nil here, we shouldn't get an error now. Yeah, there we go. This worked. We've got it here. So let's do that again. There we go. We have printed out the entirety of this file just by using this. Now I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So this can take another argument and we can give it a value. Now I'm going to create an infinite loop here, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm not. So I should just get a number of 5s printed out. This is what I believe should be happening here. Because for the line, we read line, or should it? I'm not entirely sure. I'm a little bit unconfident. Yeah, so what's happening is this is looping infinitely now. So I need to restart my interpreter. So yeah, because the loop never terminates, because line is always a truth value, because it's always getting the value 5, we created an infinite loop there, which I suppose illustrated exactly what happened there, but not entirely what I wanted to do. So forgive me for that, but that is worth knowing, definitely worth knowing. and we'll get into this a little bit later. But for now, we'll get rid of this 5, and we will rerun that. Now, there's something else we can do with the open here, and I need to get rid of this. So I'm just going to try and open a file that I know doesn't exist. I'm going to jump to the REPL. And I should get an error when I try and run this. No, that's interesting. So, yeah, I think since we've got nil, it's trying to read line from the terminal here, which is not what I want, and it is an infinite loop now, so I'm going to have to restart the interpreter again. But I did enter 1, and if I enter 7 here, we've gotten 7 printed out. So this is looping, waiting on my input. But what I was trying to do is just get nil here if it doesn't exist, which it shouldn't do. But because it's getting nil, this loop is I see. This loop is starting, and it's just going to read from this invalid thing. So Redline is just going to pull from a stream, which is standard input. What we could do is this. So let's restart the REPL because we want that back. We don't want it looping, waiting for our input forever. So now we've got this when in. We've seen the when before. So if in is nil, which it will be if the file doesn't exist, it's going to skip over all of this. Okay, not sure what happened there. I think my close is in the wrong place. Yeah, there we go. So that worked. I evaluated that, and we've got nil down in the bottom left here. So if the file doesn't exist, we pass in a default value of nil. Nil gets bound to in. We say when in, so when that file does exist, basically, run the loop, and then close it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I was trying to close the input previously. I was getting an error because I was trying to close an input stream of a file that didn't exist because we dropped into the when block, and because I was trying to close the stream outside of the when, I was trying to close the stream on a nil object, and it just wasn't happy about that. So that's what that was going on there. So bring this back. We get the file printed out here. If I do that, we get nil in the bottom left. So this is entirely consistent with what we understand. Now there's more we can do with this, and just this one simple example, in fact, we can make this easier for ourselves. We've got this with open file macro, and we know it's a macro because it begins with dash. So that gives us a good hint. We can open a file like we normally would. So we're going to say in, and I'm just going to copy the string. And this takes exactly the same parameters. We'll say if does not exist. Pass it nil. to say when in, and I'm just going to copy this. Oh wait, nope. So what we want to be aware of is when we're using this with OpenFile, we don't need to use the closing. So let's jump here and enter a new line. There we go. And let's rerun this. So from here we got the full contents of the file with the let scope and the with OpenFile. So we can see this has been printed out. And we didn't need to close the input stream here, because that's what this with OpenFile macro does, is it will open this and yield the input stream that we can get access to. Then we can do stuff with it. But we know when this macro is finished running our code here, it's going to close that stream for us. And that's super useful. This is what you might see when you're working with Python files, where you with file as f, and it automatically closes the resource for you. So ideally, this is the better way to go. If you can use with OpenFile, use it. However, there are almost no hard and fast rules in programming. Sometimes you need finer grained control, or you need to pass a resource pointer around, and that is what it is. Sorry about that. I don't know what that noise was. So if you absolutely need to, you can open something and yield a pointer to that and then close it later. But if you're just opening a file for reading, this is probably what you want. So let's get rid of this. It's much neater. There's less to have to remember. If we know we don't mentally want to have to hold on to the knowledge of remember to close our stuff, just use the macros. It's there to help you. So to recap, we have opened a file for reading. We've got this if does not exist thing here, which I never actually showed you. Let's copy this. If I put this here without the keyword argument if does not exist, if I try and run this, I'm just going to get an error. There we go. Error opening this file. Condition is file does not exist, which I know for a fact it doesn't. So this gives us the ability to try to open the file and handle it gracefully if it doesn't. Of course, we might want it to throw an error. That's entirely a reasonable thing to expect. But if we do want to throw an error, we can do this. If we don't, we've got these options. So I'm going to shut that down there for now. So yeah, the difference between these two is super important, and it is up to you whether you feel it is appropriate to throw an error or to handle it gracefully and do something else. So we've seen this new with OpenFile macro. We saw the functions open and close. We've seen what these keyword arguments do. We've seen that when these keyword arguments are present, we can do a when or an if or something like that on the stream. And the loop keyword allows us to loop for line, and we use this single equals, which normally I associate with assignment, which I suppose is what's happening. We're assigning the value of readline in, or a default of nil, to the line variable, and then while the line is a truthy value, we do format that, and the nil will be the default if we've got no value, and then that will break the while loop. We'll escape and we're done. So that's it. We've introduced some new ideas here, some new bits of syntax. We will be building on top of them in later videos. There's read car, which does what you think it might do. In fact, we can introduce that now. Let's just copy this. When in, oh, I hate that it says hate that it takes over and does that invoke restart thing. Loop for car equals read car in. It takes the same parameters. We're going to say nil while line do format t car, and it would be useful if I used consistency. There we go. Let's close that. So you can see, because we are reading a single character and we're printing out a new line, we get the whole file character by character. So read car, basically the same as read line, but it's an individual character rather than a whole line. One of the things that took me a while to understand is bulk reading of stuff. So there's like a read sequence function, I think it's called, but I'm going to save that for the next video. We've introduced, again, as I said, some new concepts here, new bits of syntax. I think here is a reasonable point to park it so we can get used to some of the functions, and in the next video we will expand and go a little bit further into bulk reading and then introducing writing and bulk writing. So I hope wherever you are in the world you are doing well. I apologise for the noise. It's been a stormy day. Please forgive me a lot of the background noise. Hope it was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.